101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a fellow podcaster, no other than Mr. Oscar Pena.
Hey, Daniel, how are you today?
I'm fabulous, fabulous, Mr. Oscar, and welcome on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Of course. Yeah, I'm Oscar Pena. I'm the host of the Daughtered podcast. It's a podcast put together because I'm a father of three girls, and I got to a point where I realized I didn't really know what I was doing, and so the podcast came to be between conversations between myself and a friend. We put it together about a year and a half ago, and it's been an amazing journey of growth. It's been just a lot of perspectives, information from other fathers out there that are living what we're living, just learning how to raise our daughters in the best way possible, but primarily how to be the best that we can be for what our daughters and our kids need. And so that's been the journey for the Daughter podcast. I have a full time job aside from that. I'm an active duty military member and um, married for almost 22 years now. So that's Oscar in a nutshell.
Mr. Oscar Pena, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about how fatherhood is being redefined from a breadwinner role to active caregiving and emotional presence. Mr. Oscar, as of 2025, 46% of 2% household are both parent working full time, out from 31% in 1970, while only 26% have a full time working dad and a stay at home mom. How do you interpret this shift? And what pressures or freedoms has it created for fathers?
Yeah, that's an amazing number that you throw out there. You know, I think the shift is need, right? And the two household incomes provide a lot more for a household than the one household income, right? I will say I am truly blessed. We are truly blessed that for us, my wife does jobs here and there, but she's been just always with our daughters, always at home and providing everything that they need while I work and you know essentially go and uh, what you call the breadwinner. But to your question, I think it's starting to transition a little bit. One, because of need. So as you have both parents out of the home, you need to be able to the fathers need to be able to provide more for the kids, right? Not just the kind of the old school thought of, well, mom provides the emotional and the um, psychological help at home, and we just bring home the bacon. And there's been a big shift away from that. And I have a group of dads that we get together to talk about those things, because the more and more that I have learned is that it's not just providing the income, if you will, or the food or the home. It's providing something that my daughters can always reach out to, and knowing that they can always come to me if something is needed. And that is something that I think a lot of fathers have a wide learning curve in. At least for me, having that, having to kind of relearn how to do that. And I say that because I almost had to just learn how to figure out how to be a better person so that I can start figuring all these other things out. And that's really what we focus on the Daughter podcast, is how can we as dads be better for ourselves, but ultimately for our families.
Mr. Oscar, a University of California study found that fathers' time caring for children quadrupled from a daily average of 16 minutes in 1965
Yeah,
to about 59 minutes in 2012. What
yeah.
factors, cultural, economic, or personal, do you think have driven this dramatic increase?
Well, yeah, you're asking very intelligent questions to a knuckle dragger, but I'll try to give you my best answer. Uh, as I look at that information, I start seeing where we see a lot of need, and I see that in the, and I'm sure you have data, right? So the psychological help for the younger crowd, we start seeing that there's more needed from the other parent in order to help on that spectrum. And so I think that has to be something important to consider, is where our kids are now, the new generation or the generation before. Um, how are they responding to the world? How are they uh, building resilience? Well, that's starting to show that the more and more that the fathers are involved with that, and to your point, being with them longer in the day, so that 59 minutes as opposed to 16 minutes, is it's starting to shift that view of what the father should be doing. Um, I can tell you that I just, it's a treasure to me to be able to be with my daughters more than 30 minutes, and I'm talking about 30 minutes of purposeful uh, time with them where there's no distractions and I'm just doing something with them. It could be something as silly as playing a board game or reading, or just sometimes sitting in silence with them, because that all of a sudden they start to talk to you, right? Or asking the right questions, and that's a hard one too, is asking those right questions. So I think that shift in amount of time that we spend with our girls, we as in the dads, and our kids, excuse me, I say girls because that's my lane. um, but
Yes,
the amount of time that we invest in them is really starting to show good fruit at the end, and I think that's where those numbers are changing.
definitely. Totally, totally changing.
Yes, sir.
Tell us, Mr. Oscar, why only daughter?
Why only daughtered?
Yes.
Well, that's what the good Lord said that I was going to do. And so we are blessed with three beautiful girls, and that is my role in life.
Interesting indeed,
Yeah.
Mr. Oscar. College educated dads now average about 75 or 74 minutes a daily childcare versus
Mm,
50 minutes for less educated fathers.
mm.
Why might education level influence involvement, and how can we close this gap?
That's a great question. Um, I suppose the education allows you to know the importance of that time and also the importance of that education, because we know that education is not just school, right? School doesn't should not be the only education that our kids are getting. They should be getting most of the education from the parents. And I presume that educated fathers are also knowing that, and the investment of time and the investment of the education that they're going to give their daughters or their children, excuse me, is really important, and they're starting to see that. I think we close that gap by what we're doing, right? We have the daughter podcast. There's a bunch of other fathers out there helping men to see that the importance of that time and that education with their children. And I think we're starting to close the gap, and hopefully we'll get closer and closer. Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to go to college to realize that, hey, I should probably spend more time with my kids and invest more in them. I think with the proliferation of social media and all of the forums that are out there, I think we can start doing a better job in closing that gap by providing the information, and not just information, right? But just providing those perspectives and those stories that allow everybody, no matter of their education level, allows all of us to connect and to kind of relate to that.
Very well said, Mr. Oscar.
Yes, sir.
Beautifully, beautifully articulated. Time diary data shows that the US fathers spend an average of 7.8 hours per week caring of their children.
Yeah.
But this is rises to 10.2 hours for college educated dads
Mm,
and drops to 5.9 hours for dads without college degree. What
mm.
policies of workplace practices would make it easier for all fathers, regardless of education, to spend more time with their kids?
And I don't know that the policy at work would do anything. I think the disparity there may be the type of work that an educated father, as opposed to a less educated father, may have. Right, someone that has to work 16 hours a week because they have a middle class job, as opposed to a 9 to 5 job that provides you a little extra time at home, might be the difference there. Um, you know, in the workplace, I'll give you a great example for us in the active duty realm. When I when my first daughter was born, we only had 10 days of paternal leave. So that meant that when my daughter was born, I now had 10 days of time to spend with my family and my newborn. Um, by the time my second daughter was born, that policy had changed to uh, 21 days. And now, and actually, my second and my third daughter were on the same time. And then now the current policy is a full 180 days, right? So that's a huge change in policy that I think it makes a huge difference in fathers being able to connect to the family again from adding a family member. So I think maybe policies like that um, could really help if the workplace does value that portion of the human that is working for them, is to be able to connect with their families. So that's just an example that we have, that I have personally.
Truly, truly, it will help.
Yeah.
And fathers who live with their children spend about 7.8 hours per week on childcare, while non resident father average just zero point 0.6 hours.
Oh, that's
How
tough.
can communities and courts encourage healthy engagement for dads who live apart from their children?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I have several friends that co-parent, and I can't imagine being in their shoes. Honestly, I can't imagine only spending that much time with my children. I'm fortunate to be in the home with them all the time. Um, I don't. Societally, I don't know how we do that. I mean, one thing we see is that, for example, the courts tend to favor the mom over the dad, and then Oscar's view is we have to, as adults, we have to adult, right? And a lot of times in those situations where there's a divorce, um, each one of those adults has, personal items that they carry with them from the relationship or the breakup of the relationship, and those tend to get in the way. Uh, they may get in the way of really focusing on the children because we're focusing on our own stuff, right? And that's, again, one of our goals is to remind fathers, parents, but for us fathers to work on yourself in order to be better for them. So what does that mean? It doesn't just mean to be better for my children, but how do I become a better human, a better man, to be able to deal with those issues with the co-parent, um, in order to do what's best for the kids, right? And that may help to bring that number up a little bit, because again, that's a very, I mean, I think you said point 0.6.
Yes, point
That's
0.6.
a tiny number, man. That's that is, I couldn't imagine not being with my girls. So that's a tough thing. I don't speak from it from a point of view where I have experience with that, but talking to some of our fathers in our community, um, we see some of that kind of going on.
It's a tough call, people. New
Yes.
census data show that roughly 75% of US children, about 54.5 million, now live with the biological step or adoptive father,
Mm,
the highest share since 1989. What do
yeah.
you think explain this rise, and how might it change societal perception of fatherhood?
That's interesting. I assume that that has to do with the the uptick in divorces sometime in the 80s and 90s. So now you have a lot of blended families that that
Blended gesture.
right. I mean, they're all trying to make it from where they're at now, and I I just always hope that those blended families and those stepfathers can really care for the non-biological children the way that they would for a biological child. And I
Totally.
say that again because I don't have experience with that, and so I I would never even assume to know what that is like and how hard that is, particularly as the children get into the teenage years. And they're also carrying some of that kind of baggage from a divorce. So it's got to be a hard thing for dads to have to go through. Um, Again, the biggest thing for us is to just encourage fathers to find communities that allow them to work through those things, make themselves better, and then use that to care for their stepchildren or their biological children, whoever they are, in the best way possible.
In the best way, people, in the best way, for
That's right.
sure. And Mr. Oscar, as a podcast host, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, in the short term, I just mentioned we've been out for about a year and a half or so. We're growing. We're growing faster than I anticipated, and I think it's because men have that need to have community. So in the short term, to grow the podcast, but also to provide value. Just every time that my voice gets on any of these microphones is to provide value, and if there's no value added, really, that's kind of a waste of everybody's time. So short term is to ensure keep learning this whole process of podcasting and this whole process of uh, storytelling so that we can provide value. In the long
Yes.
term, our community is growing. In the long term, it's to grow a community of fathers that can always reach back to that community, that could always go back and problem solve with each other and to figure out ways to become better and better every single day for their families. And so in the long term, we're looking at doing speaking gigs. We're looking at conferences or conferences where we either just have fathers and we have professionals and other fathers with experiences come in, but also um, things that we can create for fathers and daughters, for fathers and sons, and create environments where we can bring that number a little bit higher. Right? Hey, we're spending time doing this specific thing with our kids, whether it's in a specific event that we put together, um, or just little things like father daughter dates, those kinds of things. And I have a good friend of mine, Russ Kimura. He's out in Hawaii. He already does this, right? He does a father daughter prom that fathers can take their children, their daughters to. So these little things will start to really grow that number of quality time spent with our children. And so in the long term, that's what we're looking to do.
Good luck to your goals,
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Oscar, and looking forward for more success, especially your podcast. Let's empower men all over the world.
Yes, sir.
And can you give a piece of advice for those people out there want to create their own podcast?
Oh, wow. What I would say is find someone that knows how to do it and then pick their brain. And I have had a huge blessing in having mentors both in the podcasting world and the business world that have been just amazing in that aspect, allowing me to draw from their experience and from their mistakes, and also preparing me for the mistakes that I will make, which expectation management is a huge thing, right? So allowing ourselves to have that expectation of growth rather than perfection, that's key. And so that's what I would recommend is have that expectation of growth rather than perfection in podcasting, if that's the world you're getting into, but really in anything that we're doing, and ultimately just take ownership of what you can and grow from there.
Ownership, people, ownership indeed. And Mr. Oscar, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. So for me, shortly after my first daughter was born, it was a hard time for my wife and I. And one book that just really got me on a path was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. And that book really got me on that path of self growth and figuring out how I can be better individually so that I can be better as a man for my world. Um, Additionally, much later on, Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, has been just a guiding a guiding path, excuse me, a guiding checklist for me. Both of those books, they really zero in on responsibility, discipline, um, truth, humility, and then having purpose and being purposeful in the things that we take on. And for me, being purposeful in how I raise my daughters has been a huge part of my growth. And not that I'm there, but that is the path of growth that I'm taking, because I just want to make sure that I want them to want to come back home when they're out and doing their life, as opposed to having to come back home because they had to come visit the old parents, right? So I want them to be able to feel that need to come back to home and spend time with their old dad.
Well, thank you for that advice, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Oscar. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my other podcast, my abstract essay, is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101 Love Letters in the third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Oscar, given the rapid changes in expectations and clear benefits of involvement, what advice
Mhm.
would you give offer to new fathers who want to move beyond the provider role and embrace a more present, engaged style of parenting?
All I can say is be purposeful, be very mindful of you and your words and your thoughts, because your children, man, they are watching. They're watching everything you're doing, they're listening to everything you're saying. More than what you physically try to teach them, they're just watching, right? And so as a new father, I wish I would have been more purposeful about how I was connecting to my daughter. So for us, in in my community, we talk about figuring out how to be stronger, more mindful, and more present in the lives of those around us, our daughters, but also um, our wives and the people around us. How can we be of service to anybody that we meet?
Yes, indeed. Totally, totally empowering, Mr. Oscar. And tell us, what are your vision and mission as the podcast host of The Dotard?
Yeah, our vision is to create that community of strong, mindful, present fathers all around, and to create an area where people can come and talk, think, and thrive, and ultimately grow as a father.
Yes, Mr. Oscar Pena, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you so
knowledge and
much.
wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your podcast itself?
Yes, please. Our podcast can be found at doddardpodcast.com. There, you can subscribe to our newsletter, which gives a lot of information out, good tips and uh, perspectives. And then also, you can find the podcast on Instagram, Daughter Podcast, Facebook, Daughter Podcast, and then you can find me, um, a underscore growing girl dad on Instagram. And you can find all of that on our website as well.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Oscar Pena because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself. More to come, people. See you soon. And Mr. Pena, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel, so much. Appreciate you.